There are places in this world where the ocean does not feel like it belongs to us, where the water is so deep, so dark, and so cold that even the most experienced divers feel like guests, temporary visitors in a world that operates entirely by its own rules. Isla Guadalupe is one of those places, sitting roughly 150 miles off the western coast of Baja California, Mexico. This remote volcanic island rises out of the Pacific, like a forgotten monument. Above the waterline, it is quiet, rugged, and mostly uninhabited. Below the surface, however, it is anything but quiet. The waters surrounding Isla Guadalupe are some of the clearest and deepest in the entire Pacific Ocean, and they are home to one of the highest concentrations of adult great white sharks anywhere on Earth. Scientists come here. Filmmakers come here. Researchers come here. And on one particular expedition, a dive team came here expecting nothing more than a routine encounter with one of nature's most iconic predators. What they found instead would shake everything they thought they understood about what lives beneath the surface. The team had been in the water for some time when the first shark appeared. It came from the blue distance slowly, the way great whites often do. Not in a rush, not in a panic, but with the kind of unhurried confidence that only apex predators carry. The shark was female, which is common at Guadalupe, where females tend to be larger than the males. She was massive. Estimates placed her at somewhere around 15 feet in length, which sounds enormous until you see one moving through open water and realize that 15 feet of muscle, cartilage, and instinct is something your brain genuinely struggles to process in real time. She moved past the cage at a moderate distance, giving the divers a long and unobstructed view of her body. And that is when one of the divers noticed something wrong. Along the shark's midsection, wrapped around her body, like a brutal signature left by something enormous, was a scar. Not a surface scratch. Not the kind of minor abrasion that sharks collect from rocks or debris. This was a deep, wide, unmistakable wound. Healed over, yes, but still clearly visible, still clearly significant. It curved around her body in a shape that immediately suggested one thing to everyone who looked at it: a bite. Something had bitten this shark. Something had bitten a 15-foot great white shark hard enough to leave a scar that size, and that animal had survived to swim through these waters, calm and powerful, as if nothing could touch her now. The divers stared. Cameras rolled, and the question that none of them could shake settled into the water around them like a stone dropping into the dark. What on earth had done this? To understand why that question is so unsettling, you need to understand what a great white shark actually is in the hierarchy of ocean life. Carcharodon carcharias is not simply a large fish. It is one of the most perfectly engineered predators that evolution has ever produced, refined over millions of years into an animal that sits at the absolute top of its food chain. A large adult great white has no natural predators in the conventional sense. Their skin alone, covered in microscopic tooth-like structures called dermal denticles, provides extraordinary protection. Their immune systems are robust enough to recover from wounds that would be catastrophic for most other animals. Their senses are so finely tuned that they can detect a single drop of blood diluted across millions of liters of seawater. These are not vulnerable creatures. These are the benchmark by which ocean danger is measured. So when one of them shows up carrying evidence of an attack on that scale, the rational mind begins to search for explanations, and every explanation it finds comes with complications. The first and most obvious candidate is another great white shark. Cannibalism and aggressive competition within the species is documented. Larger individuals have been observed asserting dominance over smaller ones, and in rare cases, actual attacks between great whites have been recorded on film. But here is where the mathematics begin to fall apart. Shark researchers who examined photographs of a scar and analyzed its curvature and diameter reached a troubling conclusion. For a great white shark to leave a bite mark of that size on a body of that circumference, the attacker would need to have a jaw span dramatically larger than anything in the verified scientific record. Estimates suggested an animal somewhere in the range of 20 to 25 feet in length at minimum. That figure is not impossible in the strictest sense. The ocean is not a controlled laboratory, and our catalog of every large shark that has ever existed in these waters is far from complete. But it places the hypothetical attacker well beyond the range of what researchers typically encounter or document. which raises the uncomfortable possibility that something is out there that we simply have not had a clear look at yet. Orcas were considered and largely set aside. Killer whales are intelligent, coordinated, and genuinely capable of killing great white sharks. There is strong documentation of this behavior, particularly off the coast of South Africa, where orca pods have been observed extracting the livers of great whites with surgical efficiency. But the wound on this shark did not match orca behavior. Orcas do not leave circular bite marks. Their attacks are blunt, tearing directional. They target specific anatomical regions. The mark on this female was different in shape, in placement, and in character. Something with a wide, curved jaw had wrapped around her midsection. Something that bites the way sharks bite, not the way dolphins bite. This is the point in the story where the ocean's vastness becomes a kind of weight pressing down on the conversation. The deep water around Isla Guadalupe drops precipitously. The continental shelf falls away quickly, and within a relatively short distance from the island, the seafloor plunges into regions that human observation equipment struggles to reach meaningfully. Deep-sea research has consistently demonstrated a phenomenon called abyssal or deep-sea gigantism, where species living in deep, cold, high-pressure environments grow significantly larger than their shallow-water relatives. This has been documented in squid, in isopods, in various fish species. It is not fantasy. It is established marine biology. Whether it applies to sharks in ways we have not yet measured is a question that cannot be answered with certainty, because we have not looked thoroughly enough. The tools capable of sustained deep-sea observation are expensive, limited in number, and unevenly distributed across the world's oceans. Entire submarine mountain ranges have never been photographed. Entire ecosystems have been discovered by accident. The ocean, covering more than 70% of the planet's surface and descending to depths of nearly 7 miles at its lowest points, is not a place humanity has finished exploring. Not even close. What followed in the hours after the divers first observed the scarred female added an entirely new dimension to the encounter. As the expedition continued, the behavior of the ocean around them began to change. Sharks that had been present in the area, water, which had felt populated and alive, gradually took on a different quality. Experienced divers know that this kind of shift is not meaningless. Marine ecosystems respond to presence. When a dominant predator moves into an area, smaller animals disappear first, then medium ones, and sometimes even the larger predators in the vicinity reorganize their behavior. The silence that settled into the water around the team was the silence of displacement. Something had arrived. Detection equipment began registering a large mass moving upward from depth. It was not drifting. It was not passive. It was ascending with purpose, which is a behavioral detail that carries enormous significance. Animals moving with intention toward the surface from deep water are not lost. They are not confused. They are making a decision. As the shape rose closer and eventually became visible, what the team saw confirmed the scale of what they had been trying to reason through. A great white shark, vastly larger than the female they had filmed earlier, materialized from the blue. This animal was something beyond standard category. Its body was thick, scarred across its entire length with the accumulated evidence of decades, and it moved with the particular deliberate calm of something that hasn't started to withdraw. Sea life that had been visible and active became scarce. The OT needed to hurry in a very long time. The size was later estimated by researchers who analyzed the footage against reference points within the frame. The figure they arrived at was approximately 23 to 24 feet. To put that in context, the most famous large great white in recent scientific literature, a female nicknamed Deep Blue, who has been photographed and studied extensively, is estimated at around 20 feet. The animal that rose from those depths near Isla Guadalupe on this particular expedition exceeded that. It represented either an extraordinary outlier within known biological parameters, or evidence that our parameters need adjustment. Marine biologist examination of the footage alongside measurements taken from the original bite wound on the scarred female produced a number that aligned almost exactly with the size of the newly observed shark. The spacing of the jaw, the arc of the bite, the depth of penetration all matched. This was not a mystery predator from another species. This was a great white shark of extraordinary age and size, living in the deep water around this island, operating in a depth range that surface observers rarely penetrate, and occasionally coming into contact, violently, with other great white sharks that entered its territory or its feeding range. The scarred female had survived one of those contacts. Many others, presumably, had not. What this encounter revealed matters beyond the drama of the individual story. It points toward a reality about the ocean that is easy to intellectually accept, but difficult to genuinely internalize. The ocean is not finished revealing itself to us. The great white shark has been studied for generations. It is one of the most recognizable animals on Earth. Films have been made about it, books written, research programs dedicated to it across multiple continents. And yet, in the deep clear water off a remote Mexican island, an individual of this species has been living to sizes and ages that push the boundaries of what the scientific community had considered normal, operating in a depth range that kept it largely invisible, and leaving its mark on other animals in ways that went unexplained for years. If this animal existed undetected in waters that researchers have been visiting for decades, the natural follow-up question requires no elaboration. The ocean is full of depth we have not searched, pressure we cannot easily withstand, and darkness that our lights have not yet reached. Whatever is down there is not waiting to be discovered. It is simply living, the way it always has, in a world that belongs to it far more completely than it will ever belong to us. The great white shark is not the monster of old mythology, and it is not a simple animal to be reduced to statistics. It is a living thread connecting the ocean's present to its ancient past, a creature whose lineage extends back through geological time in ways that dwarf human history by almost incomprehensible margins. The scarred female that the divers filmed that day was not a victim in any simple sense. She was a survivor, carrying on her body the evidence of the ocean's true hierarchy, a hierarchy that is more complex, more layered, and more humbling than any map or field guide has fully captured. She swam past the cage, turned slowly in the blue water, and disappeared back into the deep. She took her scar with her, and somewhere below, in the cold dark water where the light does not reach, something enormous continued doing what it has always done, living and waiting, in the only world it has ever known.